Wow. All right. Do you have any questions about anything?
Nah, I'm good, man.
Do you want to talk about where babies come from at all?
If it comes up, I think you don't want to force that. I feel, well, either the act or the discussion.
Right.
But,
like when we're done here.
You don't want to force baby making.
When we get done here, I'm going to force it with my wife.
Yeah.
She's going to beat the shit out of me when I get out of here.
So it's like every Sunday.
Yeah, it's a Sunday ritual. I piss her off by being in here too long doing podcasts, and then she just beats me.
Yeah, I have the experience doing the wrestling podcast. My wife, actually, she's gotten really into pro wrestling. I think that's what's helped
Mine
make
too.
it was taking her to an NXT show. And I had to cajole, convince, persuade to go see NXT at this metal festival in Sacramento for 2 days. And by the end of day one, she was yelling louder than me because we were right on the ramp. She was shoving me out of the way to like Too Sweet Finn Balor. Like, it was crazy. So yeah, we watch Raw together on Mondays. Then I go and do the Wrestling Inc. podcast. And then I know it goes too long if I come back and she's asleep already. But if I come back and she's reading, then, you know.
So you kind of have like that nice, like you're in a time zone that you can watch wrestling and still like do stuff.
Barely.
Like when Raw's over. No, but still, like when Raw's over, it's time for bed here.
Yeah.
It's fucking 10 o'clock, and that's already past my bedtime. And that's what sucks. Like with WrestleMania coming up, I know it's going till 11.
Oh yeah.
11 my time. That sucks, but whatever.
Most weeks, East Coast, West Coast, by the time I get done watching Raw, I've lost the will to live. So it's just a really depressing experience. And then to go and talk about it immediately afterwards is to try and be like, okay, what can I get enthusiastic about? What do, aside from Sami Zayn and, whatever Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho are doing that week, it's like, okay, how can we not just be super negative about this? I mean, it's no SmackDown, that's for sure.
Yeah, we don't even watch them anyway. We just watch the pay-per-views because they recap everything anyways.
SmackDown Live is legitimately really good, and they have the show Talking Smack on the WWE Network, where it's basically Daniel Bryan just trying to get fired from his contract every week. So you have the wrestlers coming out and doing shoot interviews in character. So it's a little like improv workshop that Daniel Bryan just says inappropriate things he should not be saying about the company. And what does he care? He's basically, being forced to work out the remainder of his contract by hosting this show. So, I mean, I highly recommend that. SmackDown is now, in my mind, the A show for the WWE. And it's largely because of Talking Smack on the network.
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
We went to, or I shouldn't say I went to Fastlane because it was down in Milwaukee. And, I was like, I'm not going to know what the hell's happening because it's not on TV. No, and fortunately, they play all the shit that they play on TV on the Jumbotron. So I just skipped it and went and purchased beer instead.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. The live events are great. I mean, we actually prefer going to the house shows rather than the pay-per-views or Raw or SmackDown, just because they're looser, they're more fun, it's easier to get seats on the ramp, and it's just a better experience overall. But yeah, it's those moments when it really works that reward you for watching week in and week out, and SmackDown just has more of those. I can't help. I think for modern wrestling, the thesis on it is really what Max Landis did with Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, which is just saying, that yes, the majority of the time it's complete shit, but when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So Corey, how do you feel about pro wrestling?
I enjoy men sweating on each other.
Fair enough.
There's a fun aspect of it.
I mean, I usually do it out on the streets or in the subway, but that's wherever you can go.
Well, they have a lot of women sweating on each other now, like doing serious matches. It's no longer divas. It's no longer, glorified bikini models. Like now they have serious athletic women's wrestling within the WWE. And that is part of the big reason why I think the product has improved, especially with
but you were asking what I was into. So
yeah, no, I understand.
No, I've got not really a friend so much, but someone that I knew from the Creepy Coffee Movie Time people. Shotzi Blackheart does wrestling through some local league down in the city, I think, and I'm pretty sure she's wrestled guys and stuff. So it's crazy to me.
Yeah, it is better now. I haven't gotten into it this much in a long time, and I think part of the reason why is NXT, which is the minor league, the developmental aspect of the WWE, and they do a show on the network, so you see people earlier in their career. They do more interesting things with the storytelling, But for me, that's what really made me a fan, is because you see people sort of coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, Shotzi was actually one of the people who was in for the next whatever wrestling star, the WWE.
Tough
Enough,
yeah. And then it turned out that she had to be pulled from it because she had a heart condition that she wasn't aware of.
Wait, I saw that. She was on the casting special, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Tough Enough is interesting. That is always my gateway. That's my every time when I stop paying attention to WWE, it's always a new season of Tough Enough that gets me to check it out again. And that's what happened again this time. I went from Tough Enough to NXT, so now watching the main roster shows.
I was just bored one day, and it was the same day as WrestleMania.
Yeah, that'll do it too. We went last year, and I'll tell you, that was amazing, because what they do now with Access, it's like Comic-Con for wrestling. So there's all sorts of shows. Every other wrestling promotion has stuff going on at the same time in the same city.
Nice.
So we were walking around downtown Dallas last year, and it was nothing but, I mean, you just see wrestlers all over the place, tons of fans, lots of events. It was really a great time.
See, we were going to go this year when it was still rumored to be in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And then they moved it to fucking Orlando.
Yeah, we were going to go, you know, well, we felt like get a lot of crap for this on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. But that day we have tickets to a screening of Grease 2 with Max Caulfield, and it got rescheduled to April 1st. And I was like, that's a once in a lifetime thing. You know, WrestleMania happens every year.
That's
Grease
true.
2 with the cool rider himself. Now, we did see it last year. We saw Grease 2 in a bowling alley in Las Vegas with Adrian Zemed, who had a screening of it. So we just slowly are working through screenings with the original Grease 2 cast.
But I feel like I could see Adrian Zemed when I just go and buy new loafers. He'll be there selling me floor shine.
He's doing shows in Vegas, man. He's doing what is it? The French version of the Birdcage that I can never pronounce correctly.
La Cage aux Folles.
Yeah, he's doing that touring in Europe right now. Yeah, Adrian Zemed. You know, it's amazing to me. If you would have told me as a kid that, like, as an adult, I was going to be doing destination travel to see people like Adrian Zemed. We went and saw Linda Lavin of TV's Alice fame. We went and saw her at a jazz club in Hollywood like 2 years ago. It was fantastic. Just the weird one-off stuff will always get us not only out of the house, but to go to other cities.
Yeah, didn't the Grease 2 show, wasn't a double feature with Adventures in Babysitting or something?
So Adventures in Babysitting with Keith Coogan got added the same afternoon at the Castro in San Francisco on April 1st. So we're doing both of those that same day. And now we feel really good about, you know, oh, it's cool we skipped WrestleMania because we got this going on. You know? We'll just watch it. And for me, it's like you were mentioning, it's so long. So I'm thinking next Sunday, I have to start watching the pre-show because the screening's the day before. But so WrestleMania, start watching the pre-show, which is going to be 2 or 3 hours, watch the main card, and then I have to get on the air and podcast about it probably for 2 hours afterwards.
Have fun.
Yeah. You know, the guy I work with, Raj Giri, who started Wrestling Inc., which that site's been around for like 20 years now. It's amazing just seeing him because he is beat by the end of those weekends because he's been doing all the coverage on the site, talking about NXT, doing the stuff about Hall of Fame. So any pay-per-view weekend, like, he just looks like he's ready to collapse by the time we get to the end of our podcast.
I feel kind of bad laughing because it sounds like a shitty weekend, but
that's his business. He's running a wrestling site, you know, he's been doing it all the time. He was telling me when that XFL documentary came out on ESPN. I'm not sure if you guys saw it.
No, I would have watched that. God damn.
Oh, it's
30 for 30.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He was telling me that back in the day, Wrestling Inc. had a spin-off XFL fan site that he maintained. You know, I mean, it's a big business covering wrestling. I mean, there's so many wrestling podcasts out there, either former wrestlers or, you know, just guys sitting around BSing about it. Like, it's people like to hear people talk about wrestling, like to read about wrestling. It's really kind of insane when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, Matt used to do a podcast, and it's gone on and restarted just recently. Sans him, called Rounds and Breakdowns, and it was more about UFC fights and stuff. But they got into wrestling a little bit on it.
Cool.
Not anymore because I'm not there.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Now they're trying to take themselves out seriously. There's probably not enough Insane Clown Posse talk for.
Oh my god! So last night we played with this band called Rat Bat Spider. They're like a Misfits cover-ish band. Their originals sound like Misfits, and then they cover the Misfits, and they wear face paint. And one of my wife's friends came, and she just like taps me on the shoulder, and she goes, "Hey, this is a dumb question, but are those guys juggalos?" And I'm like, "Oh, sweet Lindsay." I'm like, "They're actually the headlining band."
It happens.
Yeah, it was really funny, but those guys are all sweethearts, so made it even funnier.
Every year I'll message like Jeff Gerstmann and be like, dude, this is the year we go to the gathering. We've been talking about it since the first one. Speaking of Michigan, Corey, I told you this story before, but I discovered ICP back in, I think it was 95. And it was some dude at Tower Records, some dude who looked like a proto juggalo back in the mid 90s, who was explaining, he saw we were like picking up some Bloodhound Gang import single. He was like, all I listen to, man, are the Bloodhound Gang and the Insane Clown Posse. And I was like, what in the hell's the Insane Clown Posse? And I saw a photo and I was like, guys in clown makeup rapping about killing people. I'm in. Like, I am fully on board with this. And we bought Riddlebox. And then when I was on the GameSpot tour, we actually planned it. I didn't tell them this when I pitched it at GameSpot, but I was like, we should go this time. And we went because that year they had a Makeup Hella Wicked date in Detroit. And this was before they were a national group. Yep. So we went and saw like the 96 Hella Wicked makeup show, which was just nuts in Detroit. And we got there and we didn't know about everyone showing up in paint. We didn't know about the Faygo spraying because then it was like, all we had was the CD. And I just like my fascination has just grown with this group over time and its fans.
I saw last October they were in Green Bay for the Riddlebox tour, and I made my buddy go. I'm like, we need to do this. I said, we're reliving my childhood, but I need you to come with me. And dude, I had so much fucking fun. Oh, so cool. Are
they actually doing it live now? Because I remember I didn't really know in 96, but when they toured behind why am I blanking on the name? The Great Malenko. When they toured behind that, I swear to God, they were lip syncing every single venue. We saw them like 3 times in the Bay Area. And it just, I think they weren't used to as much dancing, maybe. I think Violent J was winded. I don't know what it was, but they were definitely lip syncing those shows.
Man, I don't think they were when I saw them this time. The last time I saw them was like, I was in high school, right after Dark Lotus came out, the Tales from the Lotus Pod. I don't remember that show much. But I don't think they were this time. I didn't care. I was
it's just
I was like I was 18 all over again, man.
Yeah, there's something about that. I mean, their newer stuff, you know, I try and listen to some of it. It's more hit or miss for me now. Yeah, I mean, there've been a couple things, but Riddlebox, like, man, that record, like, I think legitimately, if you had to look at anything they've done and say this is like legitimately something you should judge them on, I would probably put that album as the one.
Yeah, I agree. Right, that and the Great Malenko. I think the Great Malenko was the first one I heard.
Yeah,
it was in like 8th grade, and I thought it was cool to swear all the time. Now I'm 30, and it's still cool to swear all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I suppose we should do this podcast.
Yeah. Let's kick it off.
Yeah, I guess we could talk about random shit all day, but
that's most of the podcasts I've been on with Glenn.
Yeah, Corey and I spent like 2 years just doing that on Spreecast.
Well, it's fine.
Yeah.
Once we're in the confines of the show itself, I don't care.
Right. He just wants to make sure it gets to the audience.
Yeah.
Hey, when you got gold like this, discussions about wrestling, the Insane Clown Posse, and lack of vegan options in Michigan. I mean, I think,
last week we had like a 3-minute discussion on how many times you could feasibly get jerked off in a 27-week period or something.
That's a lot.
It really was. I pulled out a calculator and everything.
We were very forgiving with the refractory period.
Shut up, Corey. Welcome to episode 81 of the Podcast of Terror, production of the Galactic Network. I'm your host, Matt Stein. With me, as always, is Corey Scott. Corey, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be here. I am very excited for our guest this week, so I'm going to try to keep my nipples in place.
Well, we ran out of all the hot topics before we even started recording, so I don't even know if I want to talk to him anymore.
I can see how you'd be spent.
I'm kidding. This week's guest is the author of a little book called Podcast Advertising Works: How to Turn Engaged Audience into Loyal Customers. He's also the man behind the podcast advertising agency, Adopter Media. And he apparently was a former director of marketing for a thing called Twit. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but
they're not big in the podcasting world, but
netcasts, they're all over it.
That's true. That's true. I may butcher your last name, and I'll apologize because people screw mine up all the time. Glenn Rubenstein.
All good, man.
Okay. I've been called Steen, but my last name's Stein, so I didn't know if it was Rubenstein or Rubenstein.
We moved around when I was a kid. My dad is a rabbi, so we lived in Ohio, in Michigan, and then around the Bay Area in California. And I just grew up never having a preference. So now I don't care how people say it. Rubenstein. I'm good.
Well, what's the right way?
I believe Stein is probably like the official Jewish way to say it, right? I mean, my family is from Poland and Russia, and I think that's probably the correct one. But it's been anglicized so much by people.
So when you say it, how do you say it?
Depends on who I'm talking to. I think this is the current climate we live in. Is that if you're talking to someone else and you think they're a member of the tribe as well, you go full Jew at that time, and you're just like Rubenstein. Like I'll bust out my Hebrew name. I'll be like, yeah, Gedalia David. My dad's a rabbi. Like try and work that in the conversation very quickly. But when talking to people from various parts of the country, and I'm not so sure how they feel about the Semites, then it's Rubenstein, just to play it safe.
Fair enough. So they think you're an accountant instead of a Jew.
It doesn't really matter until halfway through the movie when you switch from one to the other, and then Frau Brucke gets fed and a horse whinnies in the background.
What the fuck just happened?
Young Frankenstein. I'm sorry, I had to use the reference. It was too obvious.
For more on this podcast, including show notes, contact information, subscription links, go to gncast.com/pot. You can chat with us on our Slack channel during our shows at gncast.com/sign up. While you're there, you can subscribe to our newsletter as well. This week we're spoiling the final girls. And I swear a lot. And before I forget, Glenn, can you talk more about Adopter Media and everything you have going on in your book?
Yeah. So I worked at Twit for 4 years selling podcast ads, where I was also the director of marketing. And what happened, if you listen to the Twit network, a lot of advertisers, everyone from Slack to lynda.com, BarkBox, there were probably
Casper
15, well, not so much them, but specifically about 15 to 20 of those advertisers were my clients over the time when I was there. IT Pro TV, and more they were coming to me and saying, hey, it's going really well on Twit. What can you do for us with podcasts in general? And so at the start of 2016, much like the 4th season of a sitcom, I said, I'm starting my own agency and striking out on my own, and decided to really make it a go of it. And so, I still rep Twit. I still work with Twit in that capacity and place some sponsors there as it makes sense. But now I have my own agency, Adopter Media. And one of the first things I did was, after hearing, so many people with their questions about podcast advertising, how rates are calculated, how which podcast to advertise on, people were telling me I should write a book on the subject because I educate people a lot about it. And finally, I broke down, and over the course of a couple weeks last year, wrote this book. And it's been doing surprisingly well. It was the #1 bestseller in the podcast and webcast category on Amazon. And people are picking it up and coming to me and wanting my expertise and advice in how to get involved in advertising in this medium.
And then you just do the Time Life thing, like read the book and just hand it over to them.
Quite often, there's a lot of that. Well, actually I cover that in the book. But no, for the most part, it's people still have questions. You'd be shocked how many people want to advertise on podcasts. And these are people that work for brands that you have heard of. And the first thing they will say to me is, okay, so I've never actually listened to a podcast. And I'm just like, okay, I know what I'm in for. Like I have to really give them an education, not just what's a stream versus a download, pre-roll versus a mid-roll, how are CPMs calculated. It's just, this is new, right? But it's taking off. Some insane numbers are being thrown around. This year, $243 million are going to be spent on podcast ads, which is nuts.
How do we get some of that money?
That's what everyone is asking. So what I spend a lot of time doing, it's not even our business model, but what I spend a lot of time doing, and I have a team of 2 others that work with me, what I spend a lot of time doing is talking with podcasters about like, hey, here's how you can make your show more advertiser friendly. Sometimes I described it the other day. It's like just, being a podcast therapist, because there are these podcasters out there that are trying stuff, trying to figure out what works. And it's a matter of listening to them, what they've tried, who else they're working with, and what's not working, and how we can make something active from there. But yeah, it's cool. It's great. I get to talk with a lot of advertisers and work with a lot of advertising clients to sort of be their podcast ad guy. And it's fun to get to market a lot of different companies in this medium.
It's funny because I read the book. It's very good. And so much of it was stuff of like, I'd read it and go, well, yeah, of course, because I've listened to not just podcasts, but I listened to the Twit network for so many years. And this is the stuff that you learned being there, that you kind of made this business happen. And so it's like, I can see the examples already as I'm reading the book, because I recognize what you've already done, but I am seeing that happen more and more in other podcasts now as I listen to things on different networks, like Farrell advertising now, and it seems to have changed from way it used to be, which was pretty minimal, to now they're trying to insert it in the middle of the content on a lot of their shows. And they're doing the not necessarily live reads, but they are having the people who are doing the shows read the ads in a way that is open and inviting to how they're stylistically in the podcast. So they're not stopping the show, doing an ad, and then going on, but the ads are them, and it would sound like just like if they did stop and do it in the middle of it.
And that's the key, and all credit to Twit. And I've said that there a million times. I keep saying that there. I hold them up as the gold standard for everyone. And credit, I dedicate the book to Lisa Laporte, the CEO of Twit. She's the one that gave me the chance to get started in podcast advertising. And I learned so much from working with her. And the first person I think is Leo, who I've known now for 25 years.
Since you were 3.
Well,
since you were 3 years old.
Since I was a young, much younger man. And I learned a lot because Twit does it the absolute best. And I think that was the big wake up call for me in getting outside of Twit, was realizing like, oh, not everyone does it this way. I think I was very fortunate that a lot of the podcasts I listened to had a similar style of advertising, but I've seen what the landscape is overall. And I keep telling people, listen to what Twit's doing, listen to what Leo's doing. That's the model you want to emulate, because that works so well for everyone. It doesn't just work for Twit, it works for the sponsors, and most importantly, it works for the audience, because Twit has such a strict vetting standard that if you're an advertiser on their network, it's a good product, it's a good service, and the audience is really going to dig it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me as a fan of Twit, is I've always had 100% buy-in. When I listen to Leo or somebody there read an ad, be it Jason or whomever, I totally believe what they're telling me, because that's just the way that Twit has done it, is that they don't invite in ads from companies that they don't believe in. They don't invite in ads from companies that are sketchy because of the relationship they have with their audience. And that's the thing. We have been lucky that we've had a couple of sponsors here since pretty much almost the beginning of the show. But it's people that we know and people that we, are fans of. And we don't advertise it in a way that the show gets paid. We advertise it in a way of like, we love these people, we love their product, and so we want to keep advertising their product. But it would be very hard for me, and I think for Matt too, to do an ad for something that we just thought was pure shit. And I think it's important, because you do hear so many different things come across the board on these shows and stuff, and it sounds like some of the time they're just reading a script and they don't really know what it is that they're talking about. They've never tried the product. They don't completely believe in it. And that's too bad, because that's what separates podcast advertising from advertising on TV or on even radio, is that you have the opportunity to kind of pick at this point in time who you want to run ads for, and find the right mix that it's going to be something that you're into, and then hopefully your audience is going to be into even more. And I think that's the correct way to do it.
And what's amazing to me is that we're actually not seeing more podcast ads, to bring it to the subject matter at hand, for movies. I mean, we've seen it a little bit for TV show. We've seen it for movies in the sense of saying, they'll like run an audio trailer, but to completely switch genres. Corey, I'm sure you've seen this, because I post about it on Facebook, I feel like all the time, but I fell in love with the movie Sing Street last year. That came out, and I just thought it was such a great story about being in a band in the 80s in Ireland. And I thought the original music was great. I am shocked that something like that was so undermarketed, or even something like the movie we're going to talk about today, The Final Girls. Like, why didn't the studio do a podcast ad campaign, send screeners, do screenings for these hosts, maybe do it when it comes out on video so they can watch it ahead of time, and then just spend 30 seconds talking about this great movie that they watched? Because I don't know about you, but when Leo talks about a movie he's really excited about, or Adam Carolla will talk about a film that he's seen, or Joe Rogan will talk about a documentary, it's like, that's the stuff that their excitement makes me think, man, I have to watch this right away. So I don't know why film marketers aren't using this as a means to just provide better word of mouth about their films. But it is really a different form of marketing, and that's where the education comes in. Is I really have to explain to people that podcast advertising is like a mix of traditional advertising and influencer marketing, because what you're doing really has to be authentic.
Yeah, and Matt is so balls out when it comes to looking for guests for the show, that he will reach out to somebody who's doing an independent film, or is doing a new sort of podcast that seems in line with what we're doing, and he'll just go out and he'll talk to them. So we've had the gentleman who did the documentary on Kane Hodder on here now twice. We had him on. We had Derek on once when the thing was still going through the Kickstarter, and then we had him on a second time just because he was so cool that he wanted to come back.
Awesome.
But in every way, it's like it's an ad without being an ad, and we could have turned that into, if we thought about it, if we tried, and if it was something he was interested in, we could have turned that into something which was then a ad placement for the next few weeks, at least while the Kickstarter was still going on. And that would be a perfect crossover between having someone on as a guest and having them as content, but also turning them into an advertising perspective for the show.
And I think we're going to see more of that. I think we are going to see film studios realize that TV, they call it tune-in campaigns. But see, I just think just to play a little audio trailer, I don't think that really does it. I think you want the host giving its recommendation and having it be genuine, because I can hear it now when I listen to any podcast ad. I know if somebody's just reading, and, especially if they're using the same language you hear on every other podcast. So with the sponsors we work with, that's a big part of it. I mean, that's why they engage us to work with them, is because we're going to have different copy and talking points for every podcast we put them on, and then get that host input to make sure that we're calling out the most important stuff, the most interesting stuff, and really making it genuine.
Yeah, I mean, and you can hear it anytime you hear an Audible ad.
Yeah.
And you hear the person not talk about Audible just as a service, but when they're talking about the books that they've been listening to, the ones that they most enjoyed, and they get excited and they start talking about, well, but I also listen to this book and I also listen to this book. That gives you a 100% buy-in as to what it is that they're offering you. And it's not necessarily like, oh, I want to listen to Audible or I want to sign up to get that specific book. But obviously this person is spending hours and hours listening to these things. They must be getting a lot out of it. I like to get more content, so why wouldn't I sign up for that too and find things that are interesting to me?
Yeah, no, and it really works. And the same thing happened, remember when Netflix was advertising on podcasts? That's what they did a lot of when they launched their first original series. I mean, what was it, like Lilyhammer? And I think the first 3 or 4 they did, that's what they made the focus of their podcast ads, was what are you watching on Netflix? Check out these series, and the hosts really fell in love with them. And I think that that's what comes across, is you really need it to be authentic, or else it just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for the new business. I hadn't realized that you had left Twit up until the book came out, and it was kind of like oh, well, that sucks because he's gone from Twit, but it sounds like that it was just the next natural progression for you.
Yeah. I felt like as the director of marketing there, well, part of it also, I mean, I'm sure you guys know this as well, but it's like, look at podcasts and look at where it's going. And, that number I quoted with ads. So the ad revenue is coming in, and the advertising element really was becoming more and more of my passion. I was responsible for about 20% of Twit's overall ad sales at the time I left. But the marketing, on the other hand, it was going well, but I could see the horizon that this is going to get a lot harder as there are more podcasts coming into the fray. This is going to start feeling like more of a job soon. If I want to focus on the ad part, which I was having so much luck and success with and so much interest in, I was like, yeah, for me, this is absolutely where I want to be, so I can devote 100% of my time just to podcast ad sales. Although it's funny because a lot of the podcasts that I work with, they're not pulling me aside, but they're saying like, oh, we noticed you were the director of marketing at Twit. We'd love to hear your feedback about what we could do to help grow our podcast audience. Everyone's trying to figure that out right now. And believe me, if I knew there was a one size fits all approach, I mean, forget advertising. I'd be writing a book about that and just selling it for $1,000.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about growing the network, then what you have to do is you have to get a Lisa. If you're talking about growing content, then that's Leo's strength and the people that they've brought into the network over the years that have obviously, some of them have come and then gone on to other things, but you look at those other things they've gone on to and they're huge. Yeah. And some of them came in with a lot of experience too, but still you can't deny that the years at Twit haven't improved things for people like Tom or Ayaz or Sarah or whoever else that has been there that has gone on and created their own audiences someplace else.
Yeah. And, and it's no secret either. I mean, Leo talks, Leo is a very public man. But he talks about, Twit is like 90% sold out every year, which is great. But I think I was also hitting a ceiling with 20% of ad sales because there was so much demand and they work with so many different agencies and brokers and they sell things direct as well. So from there, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to hit a cap on what I can do here with my level of success. And I want to really open up that playing field.
Yeah. And right now, I assume that almost 80% of the podcasts, at least from what the audience perceives, they're all true crime. Because that seems like
5 more launched in just the time we're having this discussion.
I love those. I love those. You shut your dirty whore mouths.
No, I don't have anything against true crime podcasts. One of my favorite podcasts is actually it's one of the Stiller ones, but it's My Favorite Murder, which is on Feral Audio. I love that.
We're
podcast.
Alyssa and I are going to see Live in Milwaukee on April 7th.
Really? Oh
Yep.
man, you were so lucky. But I was a big fan of Georgia from the Slumber Party podcast and from being on Food TV and everything, or the Cooking Channel more. So, but I've been in several podcasting groups of people who are either fans or people who make podcasts, and so much of it is just this concentration of true crime podcasts, and it seems like that's all anybody knows is out there, and it's really weird to me.
It's funny to me too, because that audio narrative, I mean, Corey, think about going back to Spreecast and all the discussions, we've had in terms of this style of just having conversations. I know a lot of folks who create audio narrative podcasts, more that NPR style, and the amount of work that is involved in that is insane. And if you have a hit, it's worthwhile, but I don't know why anyone would sign up for that when, Leo has proven you can just have interesting people having interesting conversations, and that's good enough.
I completely stopped doing any sort of editing on these shows.
He really has.
I really have. I tried to at first, and it backfired, so I just stopped.
Yeah. It makes it a lot more work, right? As opposed to just show up and talk.
Yep.
Yeah, we have Beatmaster does pretty much everything for us over on Else Nerds. And it's so funny because I know that he goes and he helps out at a lot of different shows, a much bigger, more important shows than ours. But he's so driven and dedicated to get the graphics up there for YouTube, to get the video edited, to get the sound done. He created the music for the show and everything. And I'm just like, I don't think that this show could even exist if it wasn't for you, man.
Yeah.
Like Gregor and I don't even deserve to be here if it wasn't for the fact that he, for some reason, likes to show up and listen to us talk for a couple hours.
Yeah, Beatmaster is awesome. I loved it when he came to the U.S. and visited Twit, and it was like Beatmaster Week at Twit. Like he started out there just as a fan attending the shows, and by the end of the week, he was guesting on like every other show.
Yep.
I mean, that was like the ultimate in audience participation.
Well deserved.
Absolutely.
I suppose we should talk about news or something.
Yeah, what's going on?
First, we have to, Corey. We got to do a new segment that we came up with. So Glenn has an idea of what's happening. A couple of weeks ago, I like drinking. I like drinking beer. I always try to drink beers while we're doing shows. And one of our listeners,
I like it's so cute that you say it's an effort that I'm putting forth for you.
Twist my own arm to open a bottle of beer. So one of our listeners kind of called me out on the fact that I never point out what I'm drinking. So Corey had the idea that we do a what we're drinking quick, and I'm drinking Avery Brewing Pumpkin. It is a bourbon barrel-aged pumpkin porter, and it's fucking delicious and clocks in at a nice 18.8%. So I might be dead when this is done. Corey, it's your turn.
I'm still drinking Lipton iced tea out of my Knight's Head glass because that's what I do. I'm a very simple man. I'm 45. I'm going to die soon. So this is helps me stay regular.
Glenn, what are you sipping on to keep those vocal cords wet?
So I started with some of Safeway Select brand Italian Roast K-Cup Keurig coffee that I finished, which is why I'm a little perky in my speech. But then here, as always, my go-to, which is just water out of an old school Pepsi pizza parlor style glass.
Did you steal it from a bowling alley?
It would only be better if it was the red Coke cup. Like so much of my youth was spent sipping out of those at every pizzeria, every Italian restaurant, pretty much every place I ate, especially when I lived in Michigan. But yeah, I try and stay hydrated throughout with it. I've lost my voice a couple times, not a pleasant experience. And I spend so much of my time on the phone talking to people, podcasting. So yeah, I just have to stick to water.
Fair enough.
Corey, I'm sure, I don't know if you remember the one time I got drunk on Spreecast. That was something else.
It was, it's kind of too bad, and yet it's also very helpful to our longevity of being online, is that the Spreecast stuff went away.
Yes.
It all just up and disappeared one day.
Yeah, probably best it was not preserved for all of mankind.
I'm sure it's somewhere. Just got to find it. Anyways, to the news. First story we got up, speaking of Netflix originals, the first trailer for Netflix Death Note has come out. Death Note is coming out on August 25th, 2017. I know not a ton about Death Note. I also have a really shitty attention span and memory recall. I know we've talked about it. I think the trailer looks fucking awesome. This is a creepypasta, right, Corey?
I don't know if it's a creepypasta. It's based off of a
Or is it a
anime
comic book?
series.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a comic series, and then it has one of the creepiest looking characters that I believe Willem Dafoe is playing the character in the American version, but they don't actually show Willem in the trailer. The trailer, I had really no idea what the story was about up until this trailer, but it's about a book that appears that has some sort of demonic leanings, and if you write a person's name into the book, the book will kill them in some way. It's basically you're deciding who lives or dies by putting them into this book. But the creature has always been the thing that I've seen wandering around, and it is just hideous. And when I heard that Willem Dafoe was going to be playing it, I could not be more excited, because Willem Dafoe himself is a deadly creature that frightens small children. But also people have a fetish towards him.
So I was trying to Google, see if I could get a picture of the Death Note character. And apparently there's a petition to boycott it because it's considered whitewashed.
Yeah. Right now there is a lot of issues with Asian storylines, Asian characters being played by white people, even when they're not Asian characters, such as the case of Iron Fist. But people felt that they should get an Asian actor or an Asian American actor to play the character Iron Fist, because there are so few roles that are that it seemed to be available to Asian or Asian American actors. And I get the importance of that. I absolutely do. But we're seeing a lot of complaints like things like Ghost in the Shell. And even the creators behind the original stories for Ghost in the Shell are like, but she was never technically Chinese. She was a robot, and she was meant to look Caucasian. So it doesn't bother us that Scarlett Johansson is playing her. At the same time, it's one of those things that, would we really be losing anything if it was an Asian person playing these characters? Not at all. We absolutely wouldn't. It wouldn't damage anything by doing it. So while I don't necessarily think it needs to be forced, I could say that it would still be really cool if it was that way. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I think it's cool if it's Willem Dafoe, because fucking Willem Dafoe is creepy and awesome, and I think would be good in this.
The picture that you sent, is that from the Netflix show, or is that just a picture of...
That's from the anime.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen the character. I was curious what Willem Dafoe looks like as... Is the character's name Death Note, or is it Ryuk or something on the internet?
I'm not sure what the name of the character is. The Death Note is what it says on the cover of the book.
Yeah.
Much like it says, "Don't panic" on the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch Iron Fist, all of it?
I did not watch any of it. I heard it wasn't very good.
I've made it up through episode 8. I think I'm halfway through it, and I haven't been compelled to run back to it yet.
We binged the whole thing last weekend. I thought it exceeded my expectations because they were beaten down so low. But I thought what's really interesting, I mean, Danny Rand, the actor they hired, is the weakest character, I think, in the entire show. And it's funny you mentioned episode 8, because the story has come out that Louis Tan, half Asian actor who I guess was up for the role of Danny Rand but lost it to Finn Jones, he shows up as this one-off villain in episode 8, sort of this drunken fighter, and the guy's just oozing charisma and is so great. And it's amazing to me that he was one of the most memorable things about the series in this teensy little appearance, and he could have been Danny Rand.
Yeah, and is it that they did it because they wanted to stay with the original ideas of the comics, or did they just feel that Finn Jones was going to work with the story that they wanted to tell better? And I understand that a lot of the problems with the show, like the fight scenes and stuff, Finn was being trained to do them 15 minutes before they were shot. Yeah. So that's why they were very lackluster. Most of my interest in the show so far has had to do with the Colleen Wing character. I like the actress a lot in it. I enjoy her character arc more than what I've seen so far. But it feels like it's a forced series. Like it's just, well, we promised them an Iron Fist story, so we're going to do that to get to the Defenders. but it feels completely unnecessary so far.
Yeah.
And that's at episode 8, and there's 13 of them, and all of them feel a little long to me. The first Daredevil season probably didn't bother me as much, but I ran into it a little bit with Jessica Jones. I ran into it a lot more, especially when they did the changeover of the villains halfway through the season for Luke Cage.
Mhm.
I think I found the personality of Luke Cage far more interesting, but I had a lot of problems with the story that they told, mostly the second half of the story and the second half's villain. Jessica Jones had the most compelling villain of all the series, and I like her as a character. She's easily my favorite of all 4 of them. But it's kind of, we talk about the 24 episode seasons that TV shows have, and how a lot of it seems like it's a lot of filler. It almost feels like 13 episodes might be too much for these shows. 8 episodes for Stranger Things worked phenomenally. It's hard for me to go past that on a season and have it be, it has to be extraordinary for it to work for that long.
No, absolutely.
Especially when you're binge watching.
Well, and I'm hoping with Finn that they cast him maybe because of his chemistry with, what is it, Mike Cutter, who plays Luke Cage. I'm hoping, I think his character will work better in that context, maybe of interacting with them. But yeah, I don't know. But, you know, in terms of people have said Iron Fist is the weakest thing that Marvel has done on TV yet. And I say, oh, you have not watched every episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if you believe that to be true. Because Iron Fist was better than that, better than the worst of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, it's also, I mean, one, I think I consider the Netflix stuff separate from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even though it's all interconnected. I think there's just a different level expected from the shows there. I'm actually, even more than Iron Fist with Luke Cage, I want to see Danny's relationship with Misty Knight, since that's a thing from the comics, that they become a couple. Especially because he's already had a relationship with Colleen in the show, and Luke had a relationship of some sorts with Misty. But that pairing to me is intriguing because of how well they've done with it in the comics. There's a writer who's been doing Jeremy Whitley, who's been writing stuff of those characters and like backup stories and stuff for Marvel, and it's very important to him. Because he's in an interracial relationship or marriage and has a child of mixed race. And I just think that, that seems cool, but it depends on how far they're going to go with that. We are only getting 8 episodes of Defenders, as I understand it, which may be better for all of us. And we're getting Sigourney Weaver, which I think sounds great. Yeah. My guess, as Danny Rand's mom, that they kept specifying, probably died, likely died, but who knows?
Yeah. But as far as Death Note, is this, I didn't even catch if this is a movie or if this is a series.
I think it's a series.
Yeah. I don't know if the story itself would be compelling to me if it wasn't for the anime that it's based off of. But certainly the Defoe factor stands out for me personally. And it looks pretty good. It's just, it seems a lot of like, it's sort of the social media Facebook bully kind of thing of like, oh, I don't like you, so I'm going to write your name down in this book and it's going to destroy your life, or in this case kill you. That seems a little too on the nose for today, but we'll see what they do with it. The mood of the trailer is pretty good.
Moving on to the next story. I don't care about this at all, but Manos Returns teaser came out. And if you listen to this podcast, you remember when we did Manos, The Hands of Fate, and it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I get that that's the allure, but it is actually hot garbage. Yeah, I didn't even watch the trailer or the teaser. Did you watch it, Corey?
I did. There's not a lot to it, but that's exactly why I included it, is because it's Manos, Hands of Fate. It is one of the worst movies that we've ever seen. Although I kind of think Dave's other choice, that vampire film that he had us
Grave
watch,
of the Vampire, that one was definitely...
I feel like that was worse.
Manos at least had like things I can make fun of. Grave of the Vampire, I think it was trying to be really good, and it was even worse.
It was
it was bad.
Just hurt my feelings bad. But this is, I mean, we've known that we have a love of Manos, I think, for the the ridiculousness of it, the spin-off aspect of it, the
There's a side-scrolling video game on Steam.
Yeah, and the
I
puppet
bought it.
version, Manos Hands of Felt, I think is one of the greatest things to do with something. Plus, there is a new Mystery Science Theater coming to Netflix very soon. So you kind of hope that maybe this is arriving just in time to wind up in one of the seasons of that. I don't expect it to be good, but at the very least, it has Jackie Neiman Jones, who was part of the original film, is a part of this one as well. So it's got a pedigree, if you want to call it that. I don't know.
Whatever.
I mostly put it in there to make fun of you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Glenn, have you seen Manos?
No, I have not.
All right,
I
good.
mean,
Just don't.
yeah, it's it's tough for me to watch something and be like, I literally got no enjoyment out of it. And normally that's something that's just mediocre. I mean, it's not so bad it's good. It's just literally like just bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's literally terrible. But if you get to read up on the backstory of it, like you like that movie about I don't even remember what it's called, but the guy who was just a terrible actor, and he and his girlfriend, like The Room. Yes, you've talked about The Room before in an appreciative way. Yeah, it's it's shit, but at the same time you enjoy it because of the backstory to it being shit, right?
Yeah, there's a movie we saw on San Francisco Public Access a couple of years ago called Generation Now. That's like a group about a multi-culty group of kids that's having issues at home, so they turn to drugs and like gangs, and it looks like it was shot on camcorders, but this dude released it on DVD, and if you go to the website for Generation Now, he talks about it like he's the new Coppola. It's like this visionary groundbreaking film. So I bought that on DVD. Like my wife and I have watched that multiple times because its heart is in the right place, and you could tell someone really cared about what they were making. They just didn't have the skills or equipment or talent to pull it off, and that I can kind of respect.
Yeah, and this Manos was done more of a bet. The guy's like, oh, I can make a fucking movie. It's almost like Springtime for Hitler, but he didn't make it to lose money. He just figured he could make a movie if he just threw enough money and time into it. He's like, oh yeah, I could make a movie and do all this stuff. And then he did, and it's just considered the worst thing ever made. And I can't say that it would actually land higher if we weren't already picking on it for being the story behind it. It is a really terrible film, but I think that's again what's part of compelling about it. But only that.
Not a whole lot of redeeming value to that movie.
I would almost like to see somebody fix it. I'd almost like to see somebody try to come along and make Manos palatable. I don't think that's what the sequel is going to be. I think the sequel is milking the terribleness of it.
More of the bad. Yeah.
I don't know if this is an aging thing or just where culture is, but I have that a lot more lately where I'll watch things that I'm like, this was a really good premise. Matt, we talked about in the lead up to this, the confusion of the Final Girls with the movie Final Girl, which kind of sucked. And Final Girl, good premise, interesting ideas, really just bad execution, not interesting, just awful. And I think it hurt the Final Girls. When I tweeted that out on Twitter last night, the director of the film did like that tweet. Is that being an observation for why the Final Girls, which was awesome, did not do better. But I've had that more and more as I'll watch something and I'm like, if you just took the first half of this and somebody took it in a different direction, I find myself wanting to fix things more lately than I'm watching,
And that is you've created stuff though. You've been interested in telling story before. It makes sense because that's how we all kind of do things. Is you read a book and you start to think, oh, well, this is going off in a direction I wouldn't have done it this way, and your brain starts thinking outside of the book and starts wanting to make your own stories. Or you watch a movie and you think, well, maybe if Batman wasn't actively killing people and Superman actually smiled once in a fucking while, this could have been a good movie. But in the meantime, it's like I'm still staring at a piece of shit, wondering why I paid for this.
What do you think the reaction would be? Because we haven't seen that, right? I've never read an interview with the director or saw where he said, so what's the story behind this film? And they were like, yeah, well, I watched the movie Band of the Hand, and I decided the first half had some really interesting ideas, and the second half completely went off the rails. So I just really redid that, but the right way. Like, I would love that. I would love to see somebody come out and be like, yep, I ripped off this, but theirs sucked and mine's better, so it's original. you know?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of directors do that. It's just that they're usually wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. But that would be my entire career. If I was still directing and doing video, I'd just be watching old movies that were fundamentally like just flawed in the execution and saying like, I'm just going to redo this the right way.
I would invite you on to Elts Nerds anytime, do a little segment called Fix It or Fuck It, and take a film that's been widely panned and find the best way to make it better, or just decide at the end, no, there's no way to fix this.
Yeah. But we're seeing more of that lately. And I think the reason why is because I think a lot of people get films and TV shows greenlit by having a really good concept for it. And then they just completely either don't have the skills or the resources to pull it off, but their concept was so strong that it got a green light. I think we're seeing that more and more.
Aaron was watching an episode from the first season of How I Met Your Mother this morning when she left. And she was never into the show when it was on. But I was like, yeah, the first season had so much promise and it fell apart. I don't think because they didn't know how to tell a story and they didn't know how to make a good comedy, but because they had to keep stretching it longer than what it ever could have survived.
Oh yeah.
And
that should have been
show
5 seasons max.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just trying to remember where I got so pissed off that I left the series. And I remember you telling me, but you're not going to watch for the next 2 seasons when they're going to end it? I'm like, no, I'm done. And I hit my wall and I'm through. And I heard that it never actually got better anyways. But it was just like, it's terrible to see a premise that is strong, that has great acting and great comedy chops, or even something like Lost. Lost had a bunch of seasons in the middle there where it was just a fucking mess because they didn't know what to do after the first season. I feel like that all of these shows could have been better if they just like felt like, okay, here's our actual endpoint. Let's go with the endpoint instead of continuing on. And movies, it's the same sort of thing. It's like, oh, well, we need to build this not just for this movie, but for the next 3 films in the franchise that are coming up that we've already announced, even though we have no idea how to make any of them work. and that seems to be a problem right now, is we're not able to make good films. We're making franchises and hoping that the first films are good enough to keep people coming back for the next few.
Yeah, and then it ends up like Divergent, where it's just like, we're not even gonna. Did that last one even ever get released?
It's supposed to come out for TV, and the Shailene Woodley or Woodward or whatever is saying like she's not going to come back for it if it's a TV movie as opposed to something released in the theater. And I'm like, God, I wonder what their contracts are like for you, and I wonder if anybody's going to want to work with you after that if you want to even finish up this project.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, more and more it's just poor execution and for a variety of reasons. And it's very unfortunate because I think a lot of people have good ideas that they just don't know how to properly execute.
Yeah.
Very true. Moving on to the next news story. Hellraiser is getting an anthology series in a comic form. I imagine if Brad Ludwig were into Hellraiser, he would have a full chub. This. It sounds cool. Corey?
One of the things about this that kind of stands out for me, it's that this is a new company, graphic novel imprint called Seraphim Comics that Clive Barker is running. Clive Barker has done a lot of comic stuff. Hellraiser has been in the comics many a time through different companies. It was part of the Epic line, I think, for a while from Marvel or Eclipse Comics. Maybe that was it, because that was local. That was up here, right?
I thought that was Bay Area.
Yeah. But Hellraiser is this very rich mythology that they just can't seem to make work in the billions of sequels in the films, but you just constantly want to see more stuff from it. It is that thing of there's so much there to mine, but they can't make a good movie out of it. The people working on it, at least in the production companies, can't seem to make a good movie out of it anymore. But it's rich enough that you want to see more happen. You want to see Clive do it.
Are these comic spin-offs, do you find they're ever really satisfying? I mean, I know Fight Club was the last one, right? That it was like, oh, we're doing a Fight Club sequel, but in comic form. Do you think that it comes across like sort of glorified fan fiction at a point where it's like, well, here's one writer's take on where it could have gone? It never feels as strong, I think, as the original property that they're adapting. And I just say that with every situation like this, whether it was the Ghostbusters comic that came in a couple of years ago, they did some Nightmare on Elm Street ones, some Friday the 13th ones, just all of it just kind of felt like, actually, you know, the one that sounded interesting, I never read them, but I guess Final Destination got some spin-offs that were just like different premise sequels in both novel form and comic form, and they just took different ideas for big accidents and then played out like a Final Destination movie. And that I read some good stuff about. But I think that's something where the template is so strong of those movies, you know?
Yeah, the thing about the Fight Club is that Chuck actually wrote the comics, which is a little different. Now, I don't know that I expected a Fight Club sequel, and I certainly didn't expect a Fight Club sequel to happen in a comic book. I would have thought that it would have been a novel first. But I think that that's a little different than even back in the 90s. There was the Techno Comics, which was a company that popped up and had all of these people that were writing sci-fi and stuff that were big names. Like Leonard Nimoy had a comic series or a couple series that were based off of his concepts, and Neil Gaiman was a part of it and had some things that were in it, but they weren't writing it themselves. So it was like they created the ideas and the concepts, and then somebody else was taking it, making the comic books out of it. And it was also a shared universe, which didn't make a lot of sense to me with
like
what they were trying to do.
Where Shatner just rambled and somebody wrote it down and he was like, find a way to make a story out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that I think is part of the problem. Is I want to see the person who masterminded this. I don't want to read a Neil Gaiman comic based off of a Neil Gaiman story when Neil Gaiman didn't write the comic, because that's where he started at. And it's one of those things. No matter how good the people who do it are, I want to see his take on it. That's the one that I trust.
It's the same reason why those web series versions of TV shows always suck, is because it's not the writers from the show. It's like the writer's assistant that they were like, you have to write 12 episodes. It's going to go up on the ABC website, you know, just knock that out. Like it's never the A team that's in there putting that together.
Yeah. Give us a yo-yo series for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly.
Which I didn't watch, so I don't have any idea if it was good or not. I like the character.
Sure.
At least they got the actual actress involved in it. But sometimes it's like, and this is just an advertisement for AccuView contact lenses or something that you get 5 minutes a week of. But the thing about Hellraiser is that there's such a vast mythology. It's kind of like the expanded universe of Star Wars to me, which is I don't expect George Lucas, especially now, to write everything for Star Wars, because there's just so much potential out there. And it's more interesting to me to see the different takes that somebody would bring to this, like different people writing Star Trek episodes. I think that as long as it's not, they're concentrating completely on Pinhead, you know, the one character that we know, that would get boring very fast, and having different characterizations of him from issue to issue because it's different people writing him, that would kind of blow it away. But if it's different people writing things that are in the ideas of the Cenobites and the ideas of visiting hell and stuff that work in the Hellraiser mythology, then that could be okay.
Are either of you going to buy this? You think, Corey?
I haven't bought comics in a while. I'm trying to work up to the point where I'm ready to read comics again, when I'm ready to love again. New 52 really fucked me up, man. It fucked me up bad, and it was a bad relationship. That I know there's the new version of the DC universe where they're getting back to some original stuff again, and I think that's great. But I'm not. My heart's not there. I'm not ready.
Yeah. I really liked where Marvel was at before they did their soft reboot or reset with the new Secret Wars, and then I was like, nope, I just gotta, like, I'm too invested in the old school Marvel Universe continuity. I thought Sex Criminals was a really good comic.
Sex Criminals is really good. I mean, what I read of it was great, but that's about the time that I stopped reading. And it was just, it was hard for me to pick up a comic book and read it and feel like I was spending the money that was worth my time, especially with comics being as expensive as they are these days.
Yeah, it's all about the trades. I mean, it's just easier to read it once it's done and it's out. You don't have to worry about waiting for the next issue. But I don't know. The market, you know, with digital seems like it's doing decent. It seems like comics are, you know, definitely still a thing. But although the biggest properties seem to get adapted into movies and TV shows. I mean, Sex Criminals is going to be a show. I think The Walking Dead now has completely changed everything for how comics, you know, it's not just about superheroes anymore. Any comic book can become the next hit series.
Yeah, I would love to see a TV series made for HBO or something that could have the budget for Saga. Something that could be that giant universe thing that also has the ability to do adult material as the parts of it, because there's a lot of dong in Saga. It's always terrific. I just I love comics as a medium, but at the same time, Stranger Things, an 8-episode season of that, is my current graphic novel.
Yeah.
I get so much out of sitting there and watching 8 hours of TV straight and just dry sweating and hovering over my tea, just like I can't go to bed yet. I know it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I have to be up for work, but it doesn't matter because this is so goddamn compelling. And that is like watching or reading Sandman at some point. It's like I could read Death, the High Cost of Living, or I could watch Stranger Things, and I get about the same level of enjoyment out of this, except it seems to last longer.
Well, we should probably move this along. I just realized that we're not even done with the news and we're 45 minutes into this already.
That's what happens when I guest on a podcast.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I never want to cut someone off, especially for having a good conversation, but
and usually I'm the one who's trying to keep us in line. So
I'm very tired and I'm not drunk enough to make this a 3-hour podcast. We'll do that a different time. But then you have to get drunk with me, so I'm not the only one that makes a fool out of myself.
I know he's not talking to me.
I know.
Well, yeah.
Pointing. They make vegan beer, Glenn.
Oh, I know. No fish guts. No fish guts in the vegan beer.
That's only Guinness. Just don't drink Guinness.
No, it's in a lot of stuff, which is weird. Who came up with that idea? Oh, we filter it through a fish bladder.
Wait. What other beers filter through a fish bladder?
Oh, it's if you look at the Barnivore app, or the non-vegan beers, that's what they have. They use something in the filtering process, or they use bone char for some bone char in the process goes into it, which is so strange. You know? Wine too. Wine has the fish thing.
Huh. I knew that like Guinness I thought they used some fish oil or something, but
yeah,
or it could be the fish bladder. This is vegan websites take forever to load.
But speaking of fish bladders, that actually ties in nicely to the next news story.
That's very true. I'm glad. I like how our guest is now the only one trying to keep the show on track. The last news story we have is there's a video game called Scorn that's should be coming out soon. God damn, speaking's hard. It's being called the most disturbing game of 2017. It's straight fucked looking. It looks insane. I saw a trailer for this good 3-4 months ago, and just remember not knowing what the hell to think. And now I'm really pumped to play it. How would you even describe this?
Geiger-esque?
Yeah. They say it's based on inspiration from the nightmarish designs of H.R. Geiger and paintings of Borinsky. I can't say either of that person's names.
Oh, wow.
So you know that they've obviously got to be a foreign entity of some sort of evil. I don't even recognize this person. But that's exactly if I'm going to get immersed into a horrific story, I want it to be visually disturbing. Remember the Tool videos from the 90s from like Sober and shit like that with the puppets that were made out of meat and shit? That's what this reminds me of a little bit too. Like that is some good stuff.
I feel like H.R. Geiger, we get it, man. You can draw some messed up stuff. He's like the equivalent of that Burnout in the jean jacket with the Metallica patches in your woodshop class, who would just sit there drawing like, I've got the skull, dude, and it's got the knife going in the eye. It's like, we get it, man. You're into some dark shit. Like, it's cool.
You've just described my wife and everything that she's doing with her art these days.
But I feel like with Geiger, I mean, it's just masturbatory, like beyond at this point with everything he has done. The longer it goes on, the more it's just kind of like, well, this is about, I mean, you see anything he does, it's kind of like, well, this is kind of what we expect, right? I mean, what boundaries is he even pushing at this point?
Well, he's dead. Yeah. Geiger died a few years ago.
Okay, yeah. But to be Geiger-esque, it's that same genre, though.
It's basically trying to recreate the same feel of what Geiger's already done, and that's a tough thing too, because a lot of people are obviously going to be inspired by him. I mean, the Aliens movies are completely inspired by his work still, but you do want to see it break away. I don't think this is exactly the same stuff. I don't look at this and instantly think like this is just like Geiger, but it is obviously inspired by it. But it's also inspired by it looks like Clive Barker's artwork. Barker's stuff that he would draw for the Hellbound Heart and things like for Hellraiser obviously show a lot of similarities to what we're seeing in this. And it's a lot of things of flesh turned into weird sculpture and weapons and just hideous torture. And I don't know why that I'm so turned on by this.
I'm afraid to say anything because I don't want Corey to just turn his camera off and go straight to Beat Town.
You want me to leave the camera on and go straight to Beat Town?
I want you to look me right in the eye while you achieve an uncomfortable orgasm while recording a podcast.
I mean, it's pretty complimentary to yourself that you think I'm going to be able to achieve while looking at you. If it's just to show straight up dominance, then yeah, I guess I could do that.
One of us has to look away.
You know, Geiger died at 74, and I'm pretty sure the reason why he died is no one was freaked out by his shit anymore. He could no longer shock people. You know, nothing grotesque enough got a reaction. And he was one of those people that got to that point in life where he said, well, my work is done. I have no reason to live anymore.
I don't think that there was anything that he could do beyond doing Species, which was when you saw his creatures literally fucking something. That was like, okay, my art's now being made love to in film. I'm done. I feel good.
Yeah. So no, this game looks gross. Some freaky shit. I get it, man. You know, you're edgy. You're cool.
the emo kid in class. It's part of. Is this current? There's the Humble Bundle launches multi-platform publishing and funding initiative. I'm trying to see if there's a release date on it, but Scorn is going to be part of that.
And the Humble Bundle stuff is, I mean, that is a great thing.
Humble's gotten a little ridiculous with their bundles. They used to just be the Humble Bundle, and now there's the Humble Bundle, and the Humble Mobile Bundle, and the Humble Book Bundle, and the Humble in Your Butt Bundle.
It's their brand.
Fucking,
you know?
I get it. I'm just over here with 7 people listening to my podcast being fucking salty. I had a drink to get through these things, otherwise I just cry.
Well, then let's take a weird step and talk about the movie that we came here to discuss.
I loved this movie.
I'm very glad. I'm very glad to hear that.
And I hate everything, so you've done well.
I was so afraid I went out on a limb, and when I sat down to rewatch it last night and it started, at first I was kind of like, did I maybe oversell, put too long of a tail on this kite? But I'm so glad to hear that.
No, so as previously mentioned, we watched The Final Girls, which was a really interesting take on a slasher movie. I don't want to get too far off.
Let's pre-warn people again, like we do at the beginning of the show, but just so you keep things in mind, we are going to spoil this movie. We're going to talk about it in ways that if you have not seen it yet, you probably should watch it first, because while the premise, once it becomes apparent what the premise is, you kind of get an idea as to where the film's going to go. It's still important to, if you want to be surprised, stop the show, watch the film. It definitely deserves to be watched. We'll give you that right off the bat. Our scores are going to be high on this one, I think. Oh, absolutely. I really enjoyed the fact that like it's a really light approach to a slasher movie. So it starts off with I gotta find the names. Amanda is the daughter, correct? And
Max is the daughter.
No, okay, Max is the daughter.
The mom.
Okay,
Amanda's the mom.
Yep. So Amanda is like a scream queen from yesteryear. I don't remember the exact years that this movie took place. So Amanda and Max are in a car accident, and Amanda passes away, and then Max and her friends go to see, what was it, Camp Sleep Camp Murder Camp?
Was it Camp Blood?
Camp Blood. I'm fairly certain you're right. I'm gonna try and look
Camp Bloodbath.
Camp Bloodbath.
Camp Bloodbath. Yep. So they go back to a movie theater to watch Camp Bloodbath, and my favorite part is the guys who just pull out like an entire bottle of whiskey in the middle of the movie and then drop it and then light a cigarette in a movie theater. So the movie theater starts on fire and it opens up a portal, and you think they're just escaping. Anyways, they jump into the portal and they end up in the movie. And it becomes really apparent very quickly that they're in the movie, because I like how they did this, where it was like they were sitting there and the bus drives by. And they're like, oh, you know where the camp is, and whatever. And then it's just 92 minutes later, and then the bus comes by, and then
I thought we were going to get a Groundhog's Day situation from that scene, and it sort of plays out like that as the movie plays through the 92 minutes of the film, and then it starts over again. But it keeps doing that until they actually become a part of it, and then we don't get we're going to rewatch this over and over again with them trying to get better at it at that point.
Yeah,
the stakes become more permanent.
They start interfering with the natural progression of the movie and play into a lot of slasher tropes, and there's just a really lighthearted approach. I have a little bit of a crush on maybe Funke, whatever her real name is. I know she has a very strange name.
Aaliyah Shawkat.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I just think she's super attractive. The cast is huge though too, because I remember when Glenn, you mentioned the movie, I started looking at it and I'm like, holy shit, the dude from Silicon Valley's in it. Maybe's in it.
Adam Devine.
Oh, dude.
I kind of don't like in anything other than Workaholics, but I liked him in this.
He plays that character really well. Like, I don't know if you watched during the credits, there's like outtakes of when him and the I don't remember her name, the supposed to be final girl, and they killed Duncan, and he's like, oh, I won't tell the cops if we have sex right now. I was like, God.
It was him and Paula who was supposed to be the original final girl.
Paula, yeah. But yeah, he plays that like tough macho, we're gonna do it kind of guy so well. But that's all he does. He doesn't do anything else other than that. Even like, I don't know if either of you watched Workaholics at all.
Yeah.
Did you watch the final season? Like, did you watch up through the end? You didn't really miss anything, but it was like, my problem with TV shows like that is the first 2 seasons were really, really good. And then I feel like they had to become bastardizations of their characters because that's what people wanted it to be. And they just got so like inflated that towards the end, like what you saw Adam do in this movie is all he did in Workaholics.
Yeah, it's his shtick. It's definitely his shtick. Workaholics, I thought, started out kind of middling, but there was potential. But when they got to that episode where they had to get to work and they had to stay drunk the entire time, and he was using the breathalyzer and it was in real time, I was like, this is such a good episode. And every episode I watched after that, I was just like, it is not reaching what it could be. So I just stopped.
It was the webcam girl one for me where I knew that show was like, oh shit, this is magical. When Lisa Loeb actually showed up at the end, I'm like, fucking shit. God damn it, you guys are genius now. I can't do anything.
But yeah, he has his shtick and it works so well in this movie.
In this movie,
yes.
That's the thing is, like, I've watched him on Modern Family trying to play the super innocent nice guy, but still his voice and mannerisms coming across. I'm like, this does not work. This does not work at all. I cannot buy into you as a genuinely good human being after seeing you in Workaholics first. It's like you've been ruined for me.
And he knows his brand now. I mean, whether it's Pitch Perfect or Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, he knows, same thing in those commercials. He knows what people are paying for when they hire Adam Devine. Like, he just does the same thing now and everyone's happy.
Yeah, he did a stand-up tour. He was in Madison not that long ago, and he unfortunately, I didn't get to go. I think I was probably doing anything else in the world that was better. But I kind of want to see it because I kind of want to see what his stand-up is like. Like, have you watched Community?
Yeah.
Don Glover, have you ever listened to his stand-up?
Yeah.
It is like fucking night and day. And then do you listen to his rap at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like my first interaction with Donald Glover was on Community, and then I saw his stand-up, and then I listened to Childish Gambino, and it's like 3 very different things. So I'd be curious to see what Adam Devine actually does with his stand-up. Does he stick with his shtick because that's what he's, dance monkey dance, here's your money, or does he like try and actually be himself? Because Workaholics is done.
Yeah.
You can't really live on that forever.
Yeah. It's true, but I think he's getting money now just to do the shtick. I don't think it's like an Andy Dick situation where it's like, oh, on news radio is so quirky and funny, and then you see him live and it's like, oh my God, the horror show that this man is. I think he was sort of the cautionary tale for most people on TV. Like, you got to please the folks that know you from the thing.
No, that's true. It's like tomorrow. Oh fuck, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to see Journey again. My wife, she really wants to go. I'm like, they're gonna play the same 14 songs last time we saw them, but it's we're paying to see them play the hits.
Yeah,
That's what it's but dance, monkey. Dance.
Yeah, here's something from our new record. Oh, good.
So the last time we saw them, they played like 20 songs. They played like 8 hits, 1 new song, and then the rest were hits. It's like so they play their new stuff, but they put it in the middle where people are peeing and getting beer, and that's what you should do when you're in a band like that. That's what you should do.
They know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Corey, where are we?
Well, I mean, back to the film. There is a lot of great actors in this. There's a lot of people who are maybe not given enough credit. Malin Ackerman, to me, is someone who deserves a lot of love because she just everything I see her in, she's just so great. She's kind of like a Heather Graham, where she's popular enough and she's pretty enough and she's established enough, and yet every once in a while she'll still do a thing where she gets naked. And you gotta enjoy that. Plus she's awesome. She's great on Children's Hospital. She was probably one of the only things watchable in Watchmen for me, except for Giant Blue Dong, because you go with what you love. She's on that Billions show, I guess, with The Rock. I haven't really watched that because it's
Ballers or whatever it is.
Oh no, I guess it's a different show. I thought it was the same
Rock
one.
has 2 shows.
No,
sure
Billions
he does.
Billions is a Showtime show, not the HBO show. So I was
gotcha.
mistaken. It looks like it's got the guy from it's got Paul Giamatti and Damon Lewis.
Huh.
So it's actually probably pretty good. Maybe I should check it out.
But no, she's great in this. And her character, I like at the beginning, we only see a sliver of it, but she plays like, imagine what Heather Langenkamp's life has been like in the 30 years since Nightmare on Elm Street. So I think even though we only see, her as the mom character at that beginning for a short amount of time, I think she conveys really well. Even, in that one scene when her daughter's looking at her credits on the back of her headshot, sort of conveys what it's like to be this actress that becomes known for this one thing and then tries to have a career afterwards. So I love how in a very short amount of time we convey that feeling.
Yeah, and that's true about Heather Langenkamp too, because other than Nightmare on Elm Street, she did Just the 10 of Us, which 3 of the sisters from that show have been in Nightmare on Elm Street movies. But when she came back, she played a mom in the new Nightmare. So she kind of starts in the same place where Malin Ackerman's character is in this. And in the movie that she's in, Malin Ackerman's character is named Nancy.
Yeah.
And in the movie, one of the other characters is named Tina, which are the 2 main girls from the first Nightmare.
Fun side fact, Heather Langenkamp is in the new Hellraiser.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And they should get Christy to be in the new Nightmare.
Yeah.
Because same thing. She's been in multiple ones of the Hellraiser films. We get a sort of, not necessarily a final, but a continuation of her character years down the line. And we haven't seen her in much else besides those. Talisa Formiga, if I'm pronouncing that right,
Sure.
from
I think it's Tessa, maybe it's Tessa. I don't know.
I'm sure she's listening, so I hope she sends us an email and tells us how to really say it.
She's great in this. She is so good in this.
She really is.
Really good in the seasons that I watched of American Horror Story. Mm-hmm. I did not realize that her sister is Vera Farmiga from the Conjuring movies and from the what is it, the goddamn Norman
Bates Motel.
Bates Motel.
A show I still haven't watched because when I read a review of the first episode and it talks about the episode was really good, but there was a really disturbing sexual assault scene. And I'm like, well, you're really selling me on wanting to watch this.
Right. I watched that episode. I think I made it to the 2nd or 3rd one, but it was really tough for me to get through any more of it. And I realized that I was not a huge Psycho fan to begin with. In fact, I hadn't even seen the first Psycho at that point until we did an episode of this. There's a few films that are like very big staples that I haven't seen until they get suggested to me, like Jaws. You're the reason that I watched Jaws before. You made me watch it for What Else Is On.
Yeah.
Or not What Else Is On, but
what we're watching weekly.
What we're watching weekly.
But no, it's funny. Psycho 4 was one of the first things I thought about. Psycho 4, the beginning, is one of the first things I thought about for this podcast. Because I think Henry Thomas in Psycho 4, that's the other reason why I haven't watched Bates Motel yet, because I think Henry Thomas as young Norman Bates did such an underappreciated job in his part of Psycho 4 that I'm like, well, how can you really outdo that, which was fit perfectly with the films.
Yeah.
You know, I was afraid. I'm just afraid with Bates Motel we're going to get Gus Van Sant's Psycho. You know, something like that.
Freddie Highmore is pretty good on the show.
Yeah, I've heard
talented.
very good things about it. But in this, yeah, Tessa Faminga is fantastic. And I think this is the thing, you know, I softened in talking about it online. My original thought when I watched this is I was like, this is like Back to the Future meets Friday the 13th. And I was like, well, maybe that's hyping it too much. I would start saying Pleasantville meets Friday the 13th. But after watching it again, you know, okay, so look, this isn't Back to the Future in the sense of being the perfect film, which I believe Back to the Future is the perfect film. To me, that is the Citizen Kane of you know, my childhood is Back to the Future. But I will say with the attention they give it here, I mean, just not to get super serious about it, but you have this idea that it's like, okay, Tessa Faminga, she conveys this. She goes in this movie and she sees her mom, not her mom that she knew, who was a little defeated, but her mom as she once was, is in the character, full of potential, full of opportunity, her life ahead of her, and gets to connect with her. I mean, like, that's some heavy shit to have in a horror comedy film. And what I thought was really interesting about this is it was co-written by, Joshua John Miller. He was the kid in Near Dark. He was the younger brother in Teen Witch, and his dad was in The Exorcist. And that's actually what inspired him to write this story, was that the experience he had seeing his dad when he was younger in a horror movie, you know.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So when you think about it, this is coming from like a really real place. And I think that absolutely shows in the film. One, it's coming from a real place of genuine emotion in how the story was conceived and executed. But two, it's coming from a genuine love of horror films, to where it's able to do these tropes, not in a way that, you know, maybe what we all expect, where it's so much from a Scream point of view, where they feel like, you know, hey, we're going to blow your mind by breaking it down that the kids that do drugs or have sex get killed. Like, they just sort of toss that off as an aside. But I like that they have some fresh takes on how to make fun of the genre, while at the same time telling this really kind of emotionally heavy story that I think they pull off pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I liken it to Cabin in the Woods because it does sort of dissect what horror films are, but it does it a completely different way than Cabin in the Woods did, which I very much enjoy, because Cabin in the Woods was people didn't know that they were in what was essentially a horror movie. They it never becomes that they're in a movie. It's just that the tropes of the movies are what they need to do to make these killings work. And if it's because it's the mythology of America versus the mythology of China, when they have the little girls that are fighting the ghosts that get summoned or whatever. Yeah. I think that it was a really good idea of how to do what Cabin in the Woods did, and the idea of taking horror films and sort of turning them on their head a little bit, but in a completely different way. And instead of saying, okay, people don't know they're in a horror movie, but we're going to inflect all the horror movie tropes that you've ever heard of and do a spin on them. In this, it's like they absolutely know they're in a horror movie, but not everybody does, and they have to play along with it in a certain degree. There were parts, though, that it was like when they go back in the flashback, and the flashback is slowly melting the screen. Like, I could easily expect that was going to happen. But then when they walked over the timeline, like the year of this year's earlier or whatever, and they have to actually step over the thing, I'm like, okay, this is great. This is absolutely fantastic that they're doing this. When they show the credits at the end and they get to the rated R flash up on the screen at the very end of it, I'm like, this is perfect. This is so good that they did this. And I knew exactly what was going to happen. Because it's very easy for me to look at it and go like, oh yeah, but it was a double feature. But it's still funny in how they execute it. It's still great how they make it happen. And just in general, when they start playing with some of the other things, like the Tina character was amazing in this.
Yeah.
She was so great. I don't know her from anything, but she just was so fantastic, because it was like she could not help but try to take her clothes off until she got drugs to get clarity, and she's like, no, I'm way too astute now to do this. I can't handle it. I was a little pissed off that they used a song from 1990 in a movie that's supposed to be taking place in the 80s.
Cherry Pie.
It's great use of words.
No, and that bugged me too. And that's a big nitpick I have in any film that calls out the year it's set in. But I think really with this, because one, they had to do a little bit of playing with the math and the timeline to have Malin Ackerman to have those years line up with her daughter. They never explicitly state what year the intro is set in. They don't specify that's necessarily present day. But I feel like they weren't. It wasn't so much like Stranger Things in the sense of, hey, we're trying to do a really authentic love letter to an era. I feel like they're taking the genre of the 80s horror film and the slasher flick, which really runs from 1980 to about 1990.
Yeah, it was almost like the Goldbergs. It's more of, it's 1980 something. We're not trying to be exact. We're not trying to do something that is 100% accurate. We're doing a silly take on horror movies, but we're making it so much fun that you don't have to get hung up on those details.
Yeah. But rewatching it last night, I got to say at the end, I had the same feeling when I watched it the first time, where I am, and similar to Cabin in the Woods, where I am almost angry. I'm angry that the film was not more successful. I'm just straight up like livid about the fact, especially with this one. Cabin in the Woods got the love it deserves. This movie did not get the love or recognition it deserves. I feel like everyone on the R Movies subreddit, everyone who listens to this podcast, everyone who I know to just sort of follow, this slice of horror and sort of geek nerd culture here in the year 2017 or 2015 when this was released, like this should be your favorite movie, your favorite discovery of the last couple of years. And I just cannot believe most people don't even know about it. And I blame that piece of shit Final Girl movie with Abigail Breslin and Wes Bentley from American Beauty. Because it's, how many times do we have two movies with interesting premises come out in the same year with such similar titles? And I'm convinced that movie just sucking and falling flat on its face. A lot of people watch that and were like, I don't get what all the hype was about with this Final Girl thing, not realizing they should have been watching The Final Girls.
Yeah, I had no idea that they were two different films.
Me neither, until Glenn pointed it out.
Yeah.
So thanks, Glenn, for showing me the light.
I thought studios had a system in place. Remember like Scream, like there was Screamers that came out and like they had to move a release date and there was a threatened lawsuit. Like I thought studios had this shit on lock.
No one gives a fuck anymore.
It's insane to me. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, in this era of remakes every 5 to 10 years, it's almost like I would expect them to remake a film while the first one's in the theater.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just angry that this did not get more love. And they talked about when it came out in the Q&As, the director was like, oh yeah, well, of course we could do the sequel and have her try and figure out who her dad is, because her dad could have been an actor that was in the second movie. The ending is so good the way they set it up for another one. And it's just shocking to me that it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost glad that they don't do a sequel, or at least a direct sequel in that way, because they do set it up so well, but it feels like, but that's the payoff. It's not the payoff to get that second movie. It's the payoff of seeing them wind up in the sequel and still have to fight their way out of it. It's cool that they bring all the characters, all the visiting characters back, all who were very good. I don't know a lot about Nina Dobrev, but I liked her character because she starts out as she calls herself out on it. She says, I'm the bitch who's like just been mean to everybody for the first half of the movie. I've already overstayed my welcome. But she gets to redeem herself not only in the knowledge that she accepts that that's who she is, and she makes apologies, but then she also does a thing where she gets the final blow against the killer when she realizes that she and Aaliyah Shawkat's character are already basically going to die. You know, she knows she's not going to survive. She knows that Aaliyah's already dead. So she's like, I'm just going to do this to help you guys out and not worry so much about my state of being. Everybody from this group was like, the most stereotypical out of them was probably Duncan, Thomas Middleditch's character, because that's just who he is as an actor. It's like putting Michael Cera in the role. You're not going to see anything extraordinary out of Michael Cera that's not who he already is, which is fine because I like Michael Cera and I like Thomas Middleditch too, but he's playing who he plays. And the boyfriend guy is a perfectly reasonable version of a guy. I thought that everybody got their moments and they were good moments. And then the campers themselves were, while playing stereotypes, still added enough flavor to it that they were all interesting. I like the the Gertie romance with the one camp counselor, when she realizes, well, I'm just gonna fucking go for it, and then of course they both die immediately.
Yeah.
But it was sweet. It worked in the context. So I would have loved to see more from these characters. I know I'd love to see the story like do a twist, as opposed to we're just going to get through the sequel and the second one. It's like, how do they make that happen to improve things, and how do they somehow bring Nancy back maybe? But I still got everything I wanted out of this movie in the context of this movie.
You know what's interesting that you mentioned that? So you guys have mentioned two things that I think about for a sequel that could make it really interesting. One is the Groundhog Day effect, because at first I was like, well, they're not exploring that enough, that time loops every 92 minutes, right? So I think for the sequel, they could easily say, hey, we figured out how to defeat this guy in the first film, but now in the second one, we have to play with that concept of trying things different times of getting a second chance. But two, what you mentioned is interesting, because I don't remember where I read this. So we see that outtake at the end of the film where Adam Devine's character survives and is still alive and talking about, all of his bones are broken except one, but not the one you'd expect. There was some note online saying that the reasoning was going to be that, oh yeah, the studio ended up liking that character so much in the first one, they found a way to bring him back for the sequel. That made me think about we could even go further with that and say, well, with her mom, because if they affected the outcome of the movie, people could say that, well, like the way, based on how her mom's character changed in the original, that they found a way to bring her back.
She should have been the final girl at that point.
Yeah. So I absolutely think there's, and that could actually be interesting too, because the idea that the sequel could have been affected by this version of events that they changed. So the sequel wouldn't be the setup and wouldn't be predictable for them. And they would be in this slasher film without knowing what the plot is, or without knowing all the story beats to avoid them.
Well, I would, because of the way that the first one changed, I would have the mom be the killer in the second one throughout the whole thing, but not actually be the killer. We find out that she's coming back there because the person who's actually killing people in the scenes, you don't see exactly what's going on, is Adam Devine's character. And they do a reverse version of Sleepaway Camp, is at the end, he pulls down his pants and he has no penis. He's been a girl the entire time.
And that would be good, because they'd make you think that he was her dad, and then be like, aha, that's not possible.
Yeah. Okay. Now this fucking deserves a sequel.
Absolutely. I'm angry. I'm angry. Cabin in the Woods, I don't want a direct sequel. I just want like a shit ton. I want a TV series. I want movies, and I want comics in that universe of other attempts from different countries, from different scenarios. I just want that premise and that world explored a hell of a lot more. But with this, I absolutely want to see what happens to these characters again. And then they could do like a Bring It On 2 sequel with entirely new people and a different idea. Like, then I'm fine with that. But I want one more with this cast.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought this. I told Matt last week when he said that this was the movie that you suggested, I'm like, oh, I'm really excited, because I've wanted a reason to watch this, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And I'm really happy that it turned out to be as good as it is.
I agree. It was really a fucking great movie. Anything else you want to cover? Do you want to rate it?
Ooh, it's tough to pick. See, I don't want to oversell it with people, because I remember, Corey, with Cabin in the Woods, how I insisted that Dave, you go to a theater and see this. And he did. And he was like, it was good, man, but I don't know why I had to like change my plans to go see this, immediately. I think maybe at home it's a little bit better, because it's like, well, you could stream it. There are options, like, you don't have to leave the house to watch it. But I think if you like horror movies, if you like slasher films, and if you like, what's this genre, right? Because it's like horror, but it's also a little sci-fi element, almost like Amazing Stories. Like, this idea that we have this travel element into the material. I think if you like movies that have, devices like this, like fantasy devices for storytelling, then this is a must-see if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it showed up as horror and comedy.
Well, it's definitely horror comedy, but there's horror comedy that is like just comedy, and Tucker and Dale is horror comedy. Mm-hmm. And it takes the premise and it reverses it in such a way that it makes it something original by diverting what your expectations are of the movie and of the characters. So all three of those kind of belong in the same category, but I think it's I don't want to call it a spoof, because the scary movie films have been such shit that horror comedy spoofs have a bad reputation because of those films.
Yes.
But it definitely works as its own genre. It's a new kind of thing. And I worry about, you have to be really good at it to do it. In these cases, all three of these have been very good examples. Tucker and Dale, Final Girls, and Cabin in the Woods are all very good examples of how to take a horror movie and break it apart and make it something that sort of makes fun of itself, but also reinvents it into something new. And I think that there's a lot of filmmakers out there who would want to try to do that aren't as deft as what these filmmakers are. And so I'm glad that this hasn't blown up, and there aren't a ton of things doing this. Sometimes I like a film that is just like a throwback horror movie that is just a really good version of that movie genre that it's playing off of. Deathgasm was like that. Deathgasm wasn't necessarily anything new, but it played into what it was so well that it felt just 100% genuine to what it was that you were expecting to be. If you like Dead Alive, if you like any of the Peter Jackson horror movies, then you were going to love Deathgasm, which was just a little bit amped up in the weirdness of today, but fit right in that genre. These are something that stand on their own. So yeah, I'm glad there's not a lot of them, because I think it would probably wear its welcome thin.
No, definitely. But yeah, I want more of this. I want more of this so bad. I was just looking at the Blu-ray and seeing there's a bunch of extra features, alternate ending. I'm like, okay, well, I have to buy the Blu-ray on this. I mean,
I'll probably do it too. I just remember when the movie ended, the first thing I Googled was The Final Girls 2.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, they basically say that there is a second one coming. I just needed to show up.
And then it's ballsy too, right? I mean, like normally when a movie does that, we've had some, what was like Big Trouble in Little China. There've been a couple that set it up where nothing ever happened, but normally it's like, that's like pointing to the outfield and calling your shot, calling your hit right there. I think if you set it up at the end, you're saying like, we know where we're going with this, unless it's a Back to the Future style thing where they say they had no idea. And that clearly shows if you watch the first 20 minutes of Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been waiting 30 years for Making the Grade Part 2.
Yes,
which I think even had. Yeah, where the fuck happened to that movie?
I know. I think of that one. I think of Running Scared with Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal, because a script was written for that, and it never happened.
Yeah, I think Peter David actually wrote the script or helped work on the script for the sequel to Bigger Trouble in Little China, and it never happened. I'm like, God damn it, that would be so great though.
And I don't see it leaked online. Like I did find the script and a trading site for Inside Man 2. Like, it's a good thing they didn't make that movie. Inside Man was fantastic. Inside Man 2 was like, now we're going to team them up in like a buddy cop, situation. It was just like, oh, this would have been horrible. So yeah, I'm amazed that, I'm just amazed this hasn't happened. And on Twitter, I will say it's telling though that I did not get a response to my question about a sequel. Sometimes I find that telling. I've reached out to, directors before, and normally they're pretty upfront when they're like, it's not happening, man. Like,
right.
There's no chance. I had one director of a popular, I can't say too much, but a bonus for people that made it this deep into the podcast, of a popular 90s teen comedy. I did have an email exchange with one director where I had a PS, and their response PS was like, be careful what you wish for.
It's true.
So sequels do happen. We are in that age, but with this one, like, I can't remember the last film that had me so pumped to see more, and then just like not knowing is just infuriating to me, because this film should have been so popular.
Well, hopefully, people, you have the opportunity, if you're listening to this podcast, in a link to the show notes, there is the opportunity for you to click through. It helps out the network a little bit by using our Amazon link, but watch the movie, review the movie. And maybe if enough people start jumping on it now, it will show that there's interest in it and something could happen.
It's true.
Yeah, the threshold's got to be pretty low at this point, right? I mean, if you look at the stuff that gets sequels, I mean, I just think they just have to realize, like, hey, it's not going to cost us that much more money. There's a built-in fan base. We'll turn a profit over time. I feel like that's how some of the studio thinks about these things.
Yeah. I'm still fucking blown away that Joshua John Miller was one of the writers on this. Like, I had no idea that was who that was until you said it. And now I'm thinking about the fact that Aaliyah Shawkat did a remake of the Top That song that was leaked online a few years ago. I don't even know why, from Teen Witch. And I'm just wondering if that was anything to do with, like, if she knew this guy or something.
That's why I watched this, because I went to that screening. I don't remember if you remember this, Corey. I was shamed on Facebook about 2 years ago. Just shamed. People talk about online bullying and abuse. And let me tell you, this was just as bad as anything else you hear about, because I saw the movie Teen Witch in San Francisco at a screening with Robin Lively and the girl who played the friend who did the Top That rap. And I mentioned, I've never seen Teen Witch before, you know, and everyone just online just abused me with, how have you never watched Teen Witch? But I thought it was good. I would have really dug it if I would have saw it as a kid. I could see where the love came from. But I was reading. I was like, oh, that younger brother was really funny. And they mentioned the Q&A. He was supposed to be there, but he couldn't, because I guess Queen of the South, that series on USA, he promoted during wrestling. He's a writer on that, or a showrunner. So I looked him up. And I was like, oh, he wrote this movie, The Final Girls. I'd heard of that, but I'd seen The Final Girl, and I was like, that was a piece of shit. So I was like, telling my wife, I'm like, we have to watch this Final Girls movie, co-written by the younger brother from Teen Witch, and that's why we watched it.
God damn. And I would have forgiven you for not seeing Teen Witch, because I had seen Teen Witch too many times. One of my close friends is a big fan of it. My wife is a big fan of it, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, but yeah, it's one of those things you kind of have to see. It sounds like you were in the best situation to see it.
Yeah, it was fun. It's not bad. I think there's a lot of stuff when I look at it now objectively, and I did watch it as an adult, and I was like, well, this is all right. It's cute. It's got charm, but I can put on those glasses, you know, of being a 10-year-old again and seeing something. What did I rewatch? That Disney original Sunday night movie with George Newbern, Double Switch, where it's like the Prince and the Pauper, and he's like a rock star and a nerdy high school student. And we watched that as an adult, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of corny, but when I was 10, this was cool, man. Right. And then I realized that the writer on that is like the showrunner on Aquarius. Like he went on to do like other stuff. But yeah, it's like there's stuff that you have a nostalgic fondness for that you just don't get a lot of the time as an adult. And man, if I were a kid today and I saw this movie, like this would be my rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Into like, oh, hey, now I want to go back and check out these 80s teen slasher films, you know, understand what it was they were referencing. But I mean, I just think The Final Girls is fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. I'd easily put it in the top 10 films for me of the last 10 years.
It's a fun fucking movie. Yeah. I mean, it's very good at knowing what it's doing and doing that right.
And I don't want to spoil it, but her last scene with her mom, even though I think that goes on a little long, I do think there are some flaws in this movie, but I think so much of it's right, and the idea is so good, and the heart is there so much that it pulls through and makes up for any of its minor inconsistencies. But yeah, when it got to that last scene, it was just like, God damn it, I'm tearing up. I'm tearing up again the second time I watched it, where I was like, how is this horror comedy making me feel something? You know, it like really, really was well done. Yeah,
it has a heart. And it's funny because it's so easy that it could have just not had that. But you're right. You mentioned earlier the overall story of it, of the girl who's lost her mom and finds a way to find a version of her again and doesn't want to let that person go. There is something inherent to that is bigger than what this movie would be without it.
And I think that's the best recommendation. I mean, I could say this: when's the last horror film that genuinely made you tear up or get misty-eyed or feel emotion? You know, and I think that for that to happen in a horror comedy is so rare that they could do that, let alone a horror film, right? Normally in a horror film, you think about, oh man, that's a shitty way to die. Man, the world is a cruel and dark place. Like in horror, I normally don't ever feel, sentiment. It's normally kind of like, oh, I really don't want to think about that. And I think that's just so beautiful that they did this with this movie in this genre.
Yeah, I think for Matt and I, it's any movie where the dog dies.
Yep.
Always a bummer.
Yep.
Always a bummer.
Let's not talk about it. Let's go ahead and rate this. You could probably talk about this movie all day. I generally, when I watch a movie for this podcast, the first thing I do when I'm done with it is get rid of it. I kept this one. Like I hung on to this. I will likely watch it again soon. I will probably make my wife watch it too. I really did enjoy this movie. For that, I thank you. Because I'm 14 years old on the inside, Glenn, here we rate our movies on a FAP scale. I literally took our old scale and I made penis references just to make it a FAP scale. But we do it on a 0 to 5 in 3 categories. First of all, we're going to start with the feature. I can't imagine you're going to give us a bad number, but how did you like the story?
I think it's a 5. I mean, just talking about it, you know what I mean? Like, just if I read the synopsis of this film, I'd be like, I have to see it. I absolutely have to see it. And then just from watching it, and it's so fleshed out. It's fleshed out so well. And the acting, like you guys were talking about with what Tessa Familia does with the character of Max, like she is treating this for a horror comedy like she is seeing her mom, who at that point had been dead for years, and made me believe those things she was feeling. So I give it a 5.
She brings a gravitas to it that was unexpected for this kind of film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you give it, Corey?
I'm gonna go 4.5. I think it's absolutely terrific. I certainly can see some of the shortcomings stand up a little bit for me. And it's as far as a horror movie goes, it's not quite enough of that. I would have liked to see them go a little bit deeper on some of the stuff with the villain of the film, but otherwise, yeah, it's such a great time.
Mm-hmm. Next, we got the attention.
Wait, did you score?
Oh shit, 5.
Right on.
Sorry,
you rarely go higher in score than I do, so that's awesome.
Yes, I really, like I said, I really enjoyed this movie. Next up, the attention. How likely are you to rewatch this? How likely are you to recommend this to someone else? Which you recommended it to 2 people, kind of.
Yeah. I feel this way largely how I felt about Sing Street, where it's like, forget my job, forget my business, forget everything I do to make money. I want to make it my full-time mission to bring awareness to this film. Like, that's what I want to do, and if anyone that follows me on Twitter, funny joke there, me mentioning my Twitter, but anyone that follows me on Facebook knows that since last summer, like, I'm a Sing Street promoting machine and will take any opportunity to engage in conversation about it with people online. And I would absolutely do that for this as well.
0 to 5, what would you give it?
No, definitely a 5.
5. God damn. Corey, how about you?
I'm going to agree with the 5. The fact that we sat here and conceptualized what we think the sequel could or should be says a lot. It just immediately, it's like, we could do this, and they could, and I really want to see that now. I do love this movie, and I love the potential of what else could come. So yeah, I'm going to agree.
I went with a modest 4.
Respectable.
Yeah, I really don't have a good explanation. I will likely recommend it to others. I will watch it multiple times. I will make other people watch it.
I mean, we're talking about attention, and you get distracted while masturbating.
I get distracted pretty much during everything.
You know how I knew? It's funny you mentioned that, because the first time I watched this, it was one where, I mean, if I'm watching anything, I'm looking at my phone during it. I'm on Twitter, I'm doing stuff. With this one, it was like, after that first car crash scene, I was just like, okay, phone's down. I'm curious where this is going, what it's doing. But Corey, what you mentioned is so spot on, man. It's like, so, they talk about like, like, why have my comparisons always come back to like drug addiction and heroin? But it's like, they talk about with heroin, like, chasing that high, man, you're chasing that first high. And what I think about with movies, I'm chasing that feeling as a kid, where you're talking about your friends, like, well, what if they did this? Or what if there's a sequel? Or, this could be a TV series, or if there was a video game. It's this idea that it just gets your wheels spinning. Like, that's why I love movies. That's why I love comic books. That's everything I love about the genre of fiction, is how it inspires you to just think about the potential for it, for that world, for that work. And with this one, yes, it has that in spades.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck yeah. Let's see. Last one we got here is the Panic. 0 to 5. How do you feel about it?
That's what I'm going to go low on. I'm assuming you guys are as well.
Yeah.
I think that there were some good startles, some things I didn't expect. Like, I didn't expect Thomas Middleditch to get, offed twice. in the way he did. I thought it was sort of scary that first time when he's trying to figure out, like, okay, well, is Billy the killer? And we didn't really talk about this much. So the killer in this is very much in the Jason Voorhees mold. They did minimal amounts to do some variation on that, even down to his backstory. But no, I did think there was a little tension and unease where you don't know where the film is going during that first scene where they have their confrontation. But there were some shocking deaths, some things I didn't expect. But yeah, I would give that like a 2, I think, as far as full panic. I have a pretty good idea that this isn't going to have, this isn't going to end like the original version of The Vanishing, where I'm just going to be like, what in the hell did I just see? But the effects, no, I'd say on the effects surprises, yeah, that's where we go, like a 2 to a 3 on it, where I think it's a little weaker because they didn't try and make it genuinely scary. But to Corey's point, man, like, to me, that's what a sequel could be, in terms of they could really amp that up by making it an original, fresh scenario that they don't know how it's going to play or what the rules are.
It's true. Corey?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2.5, and I'm gonna score it a little bit higher because of the effects, and that includes things like the banners that would show up that would have an actual physicality to it, and the credits running at the end, and how they utilize those things. I think that brings some originality to it, the way that they interplay with the expectations of the film. Also, because the car crash at the beginning outside the movie brings a weight to it that the killings in the movie inside of the movie don't, which is sort of the point, is that first scene, that first death is real. And then all the things that happen in the film are not real, except for the fact that they start happening to characters that are from the real world. So you feel a little bit more of a tugging of the heartstrings of like, but these are real people that are dying, not just characters in this film who are supposed to die, who the expectations are going to die. So it feels a little different. And it's sort of a cheat at the end that they all get to come back, but I'm okay with that in the concept of what the movie is. But yeah, 2.5.
Just a quick side note. Does anyone else just anticipate a car crash is about to happen anytime you have some scene where people are just talking about something where it's just a little too lackadaisical in a car? I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
Now.
A little too lackadaisical and a little too like, I'm not paying fucking attention.
Yeah.
So this is a very teachable moment. I expected fucking the guy from G.I. Joe with the eagle on his arm to show up and say, now kids, you should be paying the fuck attention to the road right now. Knowing's half the battle. The other half is wearing a seatbelt.
It's true.
I went with a 2. I thought the effects were really good, but by no means was this movie at all scary at all.
Which actually I think works in its and how much you can recommend it to friends is because you're going to say that, hey, this isn't something that's going to gross you out. It's not going to cross a line. So I actually think like soft horror fans and hardcore horror fans alike will find a lot to love about this.
Yeah, and we've had a number of people on the show who have been on here and said, well, I'm not really into horror movies, and that's exactly why we could recommend something like this. I think Cabin in the Woods goes a little bit darker. It has a heavier tone to it. As much as it's fun, it is much more violent and has more of a terror edge than this does. This is almost maybe just a touch above Clue in the fact of like people die, but you're not feeling terrible about people dying, and it's not scaring you with it.
Yeah. Terrific. Corey, do you want to usher us out?
Yeah, you can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966, or you can email us at pot@gncast.com, or you can leave us a message on the website, gncast.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to let us know if you've seen this movie, how you like it. If you've seen this and The Final Girl, how pissed off are you at them for making a movie that fucked this movie up? Just in general, give us recommendations for films coming up in the future, and we'd like to know more about how you guys are doing.
Did you guys watch The Final Girl? Sorry, I mean,
no.
Curious to
get your take. I don't think I knew that it was a different film.
Yeah, a lot of potential in the first 10 minutes, and then it just all goes complete shit.
Yeah, that's too bad.
I'll save you some time and me 90 minutes. I hate it.
Yeah, I hate it for what it did to this film.
Yes.
Like for what it did to the final girls.
Yeah.
For that alone, I'm going to IMDb and giving it a 0.
Does IMDb take scores anymore? I know that they closed down their
Yeah, they still
message
have ratings. That's how I remember what I liked. Is I'll go back and look at my IMDb rating. When someone asks me like, "What's good that you've seen?" I go and look at my IMDb ratings.
I'm sure Brett Ratner has some bullshit to say about IMDb ratings, like he does about Rotten Tomatoes at this point.
I'll say it's very hard for anything to get above a 7. I've noticed on IMDb.
Yeah,
It's like everything is in the 4 to 6 category.
I feel like there may be a way to add weight to people who only rate things high and only rate things low, to say, all right, you guys, you're not as important to people who actually have a fucking varied score of films, because we think you're really just coming here to fuck with us at this point.
I'm convinced there's studio manipulation also, competing studios. I mean, I'm convinced it's just shady. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you taking us home, Corey.
That's all right. On top of everything else, guys, if you want to follow us on Twitter or Instagram, we are at Podcast of Terror. You can also subscribe to the show via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any of your favorite podcatchers. Leave us feedback on whichever one you like. We'd love reviews. We'd love to be able to read them on the air. We also love the emails. We like to discuss with you guys how that shit goes. And subscription options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe. And you can join our Facebook page under the Galactic Network. Glenn.
Yes.
We really loved having you here, man. I have missed podcasting with you, something fierce. I mentioned Matt last week at the end of the show when we were talking about you coming on, that you are the reason why I'm doing this show, and Else Nerds. You're the reason why I wound up on Galactic Netcasts in the first place. And it has been great to talk to you. But where can people find more of you?
Well, you may have heard that you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein, and tweet on there quite a bit. Also, you can check out my book on Amazon. Podcast Advertising Works, on sale now for 99 cents. Going to keep that going for a little bit. And yeah, there's not only just, if you want to know why you hear Casper and Audible ads everywhere, check out that book. There's also some funny first-person stories, and I try and break down the concept. If you have a podcast, you can also learn about the best way to do advertising on it. And yeah, I host the Wrestling Inc. podcast every Monday and Wednesday, which you can find on your favorite podcast discovery platform.
I'm gonna go subscribe to that one right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the things that, as much as I loved your association with Twit, it started taking up so much of your time that I missed getting you doing podcasting. I missed, obviously, podcasting with you.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things that you were so great at it that I'm excited to see that you're doing it again.
Yeah, I stumbled into it. I was telling these guys off the air that Wrestling Inc. is one of the many podcasts that I help place ads on for my advertising clients, and just turns out I'm a fan of the sports entertainment, and somehow ended up hosting the darn thing. So it's a nice little secondary, it's almost a hobby at this point. I do it because I love doing it, and I think that's the best reason. So it's cool. But I'm glad to do this. This has been great talking with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. Corey?
You can find comics that I help make or publish at don'taskcomics.com. That's where you'll find the works of Levi Krause and friends.
Fun. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Matt the Lifeguard, or if you're a functioning kind of alcoholic like me, I'm on Untapped as Drown the Matt.
Nice.
Play it in a band called Drown the Lifeguard. See what I did there. Corey forgot to mention we have a Facebook page now, Podcast of Terror. He sets the thing up and then fucking leaves Facebook. Leaves me to take care of it like a single mother. Classic Corey.
Yeah, if you're one of the people who I've befriended through social media and stuff since being on this show, don't think that I just walked away from you. I walked away from Facebook and all social media in general for a little while. I'm taking a mental health break. I had to clear all those things off my phone because I'm showing signs of actual addiction. And wow. I needed to break away from it a little bit. But I love you guys, and certainly email the show and email or text Matt. He'll let me know how you all are doing too, and I will keep an open communication. It's just right now I need to read more.
It's all right, man. It's all right. But that's gonna do it for another episode of the Podcast Terror. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you ta. Satay on the tip of tie. It's turned into fucking Pootie Tang right there. We'll talk to you guys next week. All right. Let's stop.